yeah, just continuing on a part two from wake, waking up in the morning and crying or feeling to cry sometimes. And it's just this adult realization of where you reach in life. Now, I don't think that that's a shallow place in life to be. I think that's just more of all these untended, unattended noise in the background just hitting you when your guard not up. And then we also carry a lot of shadows around of abandonment, talents, goals, desires, dreams. So we have that in our shadow, and we obviously have to let that pull through or push through, show, expose itself, or it will always expose itself, and it just comes down to the intellect and the intuition of the individual, how they deal with their deep dark failures that still linger in their subconscious. Because sometimes I don't have a problem admitting, not to say that I asking for help, but I don't have a problem admitting like it's becoming a common thing now. When I wake up in the morning, I feel to cry. Like the the dysfunction there is that, let me say, from like 17, and it wasn't this serious, but from like 17, I started not feeling so well. So all my dreams kind of just disappeared. It didn't really affect me. Think of it like this: I would have liked army, right, or drill sergeants. When my stomach started hurting me at 17, or when I started feeling unwell at 17, or when I really got sick for the first time and saw what it was like to feel unwell in this dissident island, I no longer was interested in my favorite career, um, like a military career. But it will be like sort of like unprofessional if you take it from that approach. But to tie it back together to wrap things up is like, now when I look at my goals and my desires, I think it's basically stomach issues. I see a lot of people talking about stomach issues on the internet in comments like, hey, if this not working, scoop it. Um, check stomach issues. So I kind it's part of like being of self neglect, or maybe even forgetfulness, to think like, oh yes, my stomach sometimes it's hurt in the morning, sometimes I feel to cry just as soon as I wake up, depending on what I dream. Like it's be so emotional, and if I'm that is because I'm a reflective person, so I reflect a lot. So tying it back, how it is I'm gonna wake up in mornings like that, where my stomach friggin' hurting, and I feel sick. I also feel sick to my stomach. Feel to cry, like from past events, trauma, or just trails. How would I then? So then I just kind of completely cancel out the goals and the dreams. So if not the army, which in that there's code for like what, what we used to want to do long time when we were young. Code in America, code in Saddle Valley, Silicon Valley, or from what I've heard, like learn to code in MIT. These were just like the notorious scapegoat plans, or just code for, like, not really code, but like, okay, work for NASA, like ship it shit like that now. Like ship it childish shit like that. Like all of that would really fade away. Or even just like American. Like when I talk about military, I talk about my dreams of being a drill sergeant in Trinidad. So not US Army. I mean like me being a drill sergeant in Trinidad and Tobago. But my stomach issues and just waking up feeling like shit and crying really made that difficult. So I took on a programming role, because that's something I could completely ace like that. Like I could freelance and script and ace that, like wow, like that's really my gold standard in real terms. But adulthood into the 2050s has its pros and cons, and trying not to become obsolete is the biggest challenge. Not saying that disappearing, not anything wrong with disappearing or living in the wilderness, living off the grid. That's actually great, because I wouldn't have all this explosion going on in my brain if I wasn't so secluded from like influence and judgment and racism and all of that in America. So I'm able to hedge my capabilities, my strengths at a much higher bargaining point before I receive any kind of American scrutiny, if any, in my lifetime. Because the way how Americans operate, it's either like they set the terms or initiate the contract. Like that's just how, that's, I guess that's politics. So, and because I already initiate the contract and set the terms for whatever from my Trinidad, it just doesn't, it's just a misalignment with that pathway in life. So that's why wrapping it back up to the main thing is how I'll do even my basic attainable fucking dreams, like being a drill sergeant in Trinidad and Tobago. You don't even need to go to school for that, and you don't even need to do that in real life. You could just be a primary school teacher, or if you really want to sacrifice yourself for it, you could be like a secondary school teacher in a government school. But I mean, there is some drill sergeant connection towards being a regular civilian in Trinidad and Tobago, like Jamaica. So, but with all of my adult realizations and like existential crises, none of that was possible. So not even like working in a supermarket in America to eventually get citizenship, whether it be through whatever ways that people do it. It just not gonna sit with 24 plus me. It will sit with 17-year-old me.